Record it here, so let's get that started. Anyway, thank you very much for joining. We're super glad to have you here. We do have a question window, so if you see anything that you're interested in, and if you have questions during the presentation, please feel free to put your questions in the question box, and I will endeavor to answer that. So for our agenda today, we're going to spend a little bit of time just on some welcome housekeeping kinds of things, and then we're going to do a brief introduction of Sensei Project Solutions and where we are in the marketplace. And we're going to talk specifically around the capabilities of Project Desktop and Project Online. And, a little bit of history of the releases, a little bit of background as to what the differences are between those two platforms. We'll dive into licensing a little bit, and then we'll do a quick tour, just a basic orientation of, what are the audiences and what are the users and the use cases and things that you do with Project Desktop as contrasted with Project Online. And then we're going to talk about transitioning, because really this, transition from Project Desktop to Project Online is a really interesting transition for PMOs. People that are using Project Desktop for years and years and years, and then have the ability to do some of their functions on Project Online, really starts to involve a larger community of people. And so we'll talk about the executive support, business case, transition planning, some migration scenarios, and that lovely concept, organizational change management. Because once you start, as when you're changing platforms, when you're changing methods and processes, you want to make sure that people understand the benefit of those changes. We'll talk a little bit about training. We'll talk a little bit about the value of PMO governance. And then we'll talk a little bit, just a tiny bit about, what does the future look like in the Microsoft project space? There's a lot of unbelievably great announcements coming up, and we'll just touch on those, hopefully to help you think about moving forward with this. And we should have some time for questions at the end, but again, if you have questions in the answer box, and if you want to put those questions in, then I can respond to them. My name is Mark Reed. I am a principal consultant here at Sensei Project Solutions. I'm also got my PMP certification from the Project Management Institute, and a couple of certifications from Microsoft on Project and Project Online. And I'm currently serving my local PMI chapter as president, and I'm based here in lovely Monterey County, Carmel, California. Come out and visit. It's going to be raining today, which we're pretty psyched about. Anyway, let's do a quick introduction to Sensei, and then we can move into some of the more exciting topics. So Sensei Project Solutions, Microsoft's 2018 PPM Partner of the Year finalist. So we were one of 4 organizations worldwide to be selected for that honor. And we actually were the only North American partner to be so named. We won that award worldwide in 2014 and have been named the Partner of the Year finalist for 4 out of the last 5 years. So we're a thought leader in the space. We've deployed Microsoft project and portfolio management solutions over 500 times, and we've done a lot of training. Training is a key part of this. It's a key part of this, and we'll talk more about that. But we truly feel we have a global impact. We've actually worked with clients in 35 different countries, and we have a physical presence in the United States, Canada, and Australia. And Sensei is built upon four pillars: services, so PPM consulting and integrated customer care; solutions, so what you're going to be seeing today in demos is part of our Beacon solution. That's a huge roll up of great functionality, all built on the Microsoft Project Online platform. Report packs, Power BI, content packs. It's hard to see, but our reporting hub is in the background doing its work. We can talk about how that works if people are interested. And we, of course, have also extended the functionality in Project and in Project Online to support Agile in a very exciting and complete way. So I think hope to be able to show you some of that. We also provide training. So our training courses, role-based full curriculums, 3-day classes, 1-day classes, 2-day classes around project manager, team members, application administrator. That's a 4-day class. It's a lot of value in that. And we've got books and we've got e-learning. And we've also created a bunch of applications. So the Sensei Time Reporter is bringing your timesheets out to your mobile devices. The Portfolio Advisor, hope to show that to you today. That's a great governance application. And heat maps and some other exciting things. So that's Sensei in a nutshell. If you have questions, if this presentation gets you interested in making the transition from a desktop-based PMO to an online-based PMO, give us a call. Let us know. You can always reach us at info@senseiprojectsolutions.com. So what I'd like to talk about now is capabilities. What does the project desktop do, and what makes it the leading project management tool? I've heard that there's over 30 million users of Microsoft Project, so it's certainly got the highest market share of project management packages, and that translates into a broader community, more people with these types of skills, and so let's talk about what does the project desktop do. Well, it started out as a DOS app a long time ago. It's primarily a task management tool. It's got a scheduling engine in it. It renders Gantt charts. A lot of people use it to set up a Gantt chart and then forget it. and that's a behavior that is always a little bit challenging because, we really feel that projects are dynamic. Projects are changing all the time. Our founder, Kenneth Steiness, talks about, Project Online being the GPS for knowing your location in your project. And, But Project Desktop is a standalone tool. It's available in standard and professional versions. We'll talk about some of the pieces of those versions in a little bit. But it has a data model that's focused on resources and tasks. It provides calendar exceptions, links between tasks. It's got hundreds of different task level fields that are all calculating to, give you your Slack calculations, calculate what is your true finish date and why. It's certainly extensible. There's tons of formula-driven fields that you can pop into there to calculate things. There's a fully developed macro language. And they've introduced some interesting features over the past couple of years. So if you're using an early version, then you'll start to see some new things coming up, like task boards. And one of the things that's interesting about task boards is it's only in the Office 365 version. It's not in the MSI version. So we'll talk about that. So, Matt, thank you for that question. You said that Project Desktop, Project Professional is used more than all other competitors. What is the percentage of the market that they have? That's a very good question. So the only number about that is 30 million, approximately 30 million users. I don't know what share of the market that represents. Gartner might know that. I'm sure somebody at Microsoft probably has that number. Um, so we could do some research on that and get back to you about the specific number. But generally speaking, more than a lot of its competitors. It's the old gray lady in the room. It's been around for 30 years, and a lot of people are familiar with it. And it's taken pains over the years to be more accessible to its users. I mean, the adding the ribbon back a couple of releases ago and adding Excel like features to Project was all initiatives to make Project more usable. It is fundamentally a database structure, and people that are used to managing projects in spreadsheets, it's sometimes it's a little bit of a difficult transition. So the primary user for the project desktop is the project manager. That's the person who's the project author. That's the person who's, detailing the tasks, and too often is manually updating the schedule. Too often they're, sending out emails to remind people of their tasks. They're doing sort of a manual reconciliation. And so it's a very labor intensive process to maintain a large schedule. Now, Microsoft, is positioning Project, and their latest marketing pieces is talking about, smart setup, powerful scheduling, optimized task management, resource management, integrated collaboration. Those are all pointing at specific features that the desktop has. And so we'll talk about that. But there are two flavors of the Project Desktop package. One is Project Standard, list price $560 per user. It is a perpetual license. It's a one-time purchase. And Project Professional, list price is $940 per user. And that's all on the project website. You can, go see that. But it's one license, one PC, and Standard is really standalone. It does not connect to Project Online. So the primary difference between Project Standard and Project Professional is that Project Professional connects to the outside world. It connects to Skype for bringing in business presence. It connects to the enterprise resource pool if you've got a Project Online instance out there. And of course, it does the synchronization either with Project Server on premise or Project Online, in the cloud. And so the key difference between Standard and Professional is that connection that the client can do. And that connection is really, really powerful. We're going to talk a little bit about use cases and how connecting to the outside world is important for project managers. Here's a little version history of Project. So, Office 2010 was Project 14. It was only a Windows MSI installer. And what we've seen, a couple of items to sort of think about as looking at this chart. One is that the installation technologies have changed over the years. You had the MSI installer, then you had Click to Run, then you had the Microsoft Store, and really the MSI is kind of going away. Project Online is really focused on Click to Run and the Microsoft Store. Now, we've got some clients with special situations where they're running the MSI version, but they're, connecting to a cloud server and things like that. And some of that works pretty well. But another interesting thing to think about here is look at that version number. Whether you're in Office 2016, Office 2019, or whether you're in Office 365, the version is stuck at version 16. Stuck is a pejorative term, but it's not incrementing up. When we get to the end of this and we start talking about some of the announcements that Microsoft has made at the Ignite conference, they are working on a new version of Project, currently sort of temporarily named the Project Management Service, a re-architecture of the project uh, client, and so that's going to be a very interesting development. But it's, this is what we have right now. This is our version history. Now, I'd like to illustrate some of the differences between the one-time perpetual license that you would buy, Microsoft Project Professional, the MSI version, versus the Project Online Professional, or that subscription-based product, which you sign up for and you pay again and you pay again. We will talk about the licensing particulars with that in a minute. But the difference between a subscription product and the perpetual product, one is with the licensing. So instead of one license per PC, you've got one license, but the user can use it on up to 5 PCs per user. So that's a nice benefit for the subscription product. But down below there's some other sort of key differences that are happening. The task board functionality. So that's a really nice drag and drop capability to manage an agile project with drag and drop, between your sprints or between your Kanban boards. So task boards is functionality that you don't get in the perpetual one-time license purchase, the MSI installable. You only get it in the subscription click to run product. Another piece is that based on the announcements, a new vision for modern work management with Microsoft Project, there appears to be support for the new features that are rolling out. Project Home, roadmaps, and the project management service that are coming. Project Home is here already. Roadmaps hopefully will be coming this month, and we're looking for the new project management service in the first half. Maybe in the beginning of the second quarter of 2019, we'll see. But that's only available with the subscription product. So the roadmap then becomes, are you on a subscription product or not? And I think the handwriting's on the wall that, the train is leaving the station and we want to get on board and be part of the subscription product moving forward. But then when we start talking about Project Online, we get this whole other list of functionality, this whole other set of capabilities. PWA, the Project Web App, started out as Project Central many, many years ago. And it really is a web server database backend that handles synchronization with the Project Pro client. So you can check out a project from the server, you can publish a project to the server, get that data back and forth. And so it really is a platform for distributing tasks, notifying your teams, and managing your reporting functions. So when you publish a project and you've got enterprise resources associated with that project, those tasks with assignments for those resources, each one of your users then has their own task sheet and their timesheet view. So they can go and see the list of tasks that they have. You can consolidate your views around the project center, the resource center, so you can start to see all of the projects that you're working on, all of the resources that you have in your resource pool. And it would really, I believe, one of the biggest strengths is a robust, database for resources. If you've ever managed share files in, resource pools, you know that they're very fragile. And, if you move that share file, then you can't get your resources anymore. And it just was not a sustainable thing. So this is really a robust platform for managing enterprise projects that are, wide in scope, broad, and you can engage with your project team, communicate your statuses, have a great collaboration environment. So you have all the richness of the SharePoint objects in a SharePoint site. So you can do documents, issues, risks, deliverables, all sorts of different lists. And you can distribute that information to your project team. So the project artifacts are in the same place and manageable. You also have a layer for distributing reports out to your executives. So the idea with Project Online is really to engage your community in a way that you can't with just, you know, I don't know of any CEOs that really like, except for perhaps the CEO of Sensei Project Solutions, that likes to open up an MPP file and likes to do scheduling. That's a set of data that you as a project manager get to wrestle with, but really your audience, whether it's your team members or whether it's your executives, your stakeholders, they want to see the data in the format that they're used to, and so this is really a platform for doing transformations of data, allowing people to see what's going on. Now, Microsoft is really pushing Project Online, and the subscription-based product has a lower upfront cost, which is key. You can sign up with Project Online for a recurring cost, but it's much smaller than it used to be. People were regularly investing tens of thousands of dollars up to hundreds of thousands of dollars to set up their own set of servers. And now, you push a button in your Office 365 client, the site collection is created and it's provisioned. And so Microsoft has really automated and made at a much more reasonable price point to be able to deploy this type of functionality. And it really allows you to connect your team. You can increase their productivity because they're not spending time going through their emails, looking for tasks. They have a place to find those. And it really does speed the pace of innovation at your company by being able to connect the dots and make your team communicate. And so let's talk about what that communication takes a look at. So over here on the left, you have the Project Pro client. In the middle, you've got your project server or your Project Online database that's hopefully up in the cloud. And then you've got your Project Web App front end, where your team members can get to. And what this allows is a rich set of use cases that you can provide to your stakeholders. So you can start to do proposals and workflow approvals because the server is a great place to house your templates. And so you can have workflow templates, you can have project site templates and project plan templates, all fitted together in the enterprise project type and allow your executives and your team members to participate with that. That can spawn, the enterprise resources and the templates that are available to the Project Pro client. Those then can be updated by the project manager and saved to the draft database or published out to the timesheets and to the reports. And that allows you to update views and reports and task assignments out to the Project Web App front end. Or if you've downloaded our Sensei Time Reporter app, you can actually address this from your mobile phone and get your tasks and your timesheets from there. So you've got this great community. Then the Project Web App users can update their tasks and send them back to the server, and those get approved by the project manager, re-embedded into the schedule. Those actuals come in, and now you've got these virtuous cycles where the work of the project manager is connected to the work of the project team, and the work of the project team is then self-evident up to the executives. So it's a really great way to engage with your community on quantitative data for functioning and running your PMO. So um, what does that mean? That means that you can run typical and common use cases for what we call the building blocks of PPM, and it's project intake and prioritization. So getting that queue of data into queue of projects into the system and making decisions, quantitative decisions on the value of those. Project planning and collaboration, providing a task set out to your team, but also an environment where they can collaborate on issues, risks, deliverables across a particular portfolio. Resource capacity and demand management. So that means, you've got your enterprise resource pool, you've got all of these projects that are consuming resources, and you can actually see, you can visualize, for the first time, the aggregation of all of that work requests, and you can see, hey, maybe we need to hire some more people, or maybe we've got a group of people that are underutilized and we need to redistribute some of the work. So just having a dynamic platform to be able to make those decisions on is awesome. Project status and portfolio reporting. I mean, one of the key things that a PMO does is they provide reports on how the projects are doing. What's the project status? And, for lower maturity PMOs, a lot of that is just text status. But as you have tools like Project Online to be able to gather the numbers about the project status and the portfolio reporting, you can start to see performance data. And I'll show you some KPIs when we tour through some of this stuff, and you'll see that there's a great deal of potential here as a reporting platform. Budgeting and cost tracking, that tends to be a higher maturity type of thing. A lot of people leave that to last, but organizations that do budgeting and cost tracking get a great window into how their projects are doing, where are they overspending, what's their cash flow going to be, and are they getting the return on their investment in projects. Last but not least, PMO governance is the process by which you get better at managing projects, the process by which you understand how your project managers are doing and what you can do as a PMO manager to help them improve their skills at managing projects. So all of these things are empowered by a tool such as Project Online. And, you don't get to do all of these things. A lot of these things you can do in different tools and you can do in different platforms, but this is a very integrated, very tightly put together platform, which is really, really helpful for engaging your audience. So if your PMO is ready to take that next step, that transformation to becoming a higher functioning PMO and needing to take on some of these building blocks, Project Online is really the platform to do that on. So let's talk briefly about licensing. So we saw the Project Standard and Project Professional, and then we saw the standalone professional versus the subscription product. Let's talk about some of the Project Online subscriptions. So this is a breakdown of functionality, and one of the interesting things about these licenses and the way that Microsoft put this together was that they offered the Project Online Essentials license, which allows your team members at a low price point. This is about a venti caramel macchiato per month. Allows your team member to participate and consume and contribute to the content in a fully functioning PMO site. So that Project Online Essentials license, I remember where I was when that was announced. I was in the back of this keynote hall in the last project conference. I think it was 2014 or something like that. And they announced this, and everybody cheered because it meant that now we had the opportunity to engage with our users and at a very low price point be able to allow them to consume and update tasks, issues, risks, timesheets, documents, et cetera, et cetera. So that Project Online Essentials license is usually given to the team member role. And those are people that don't need to author schedules. Then if you've got people that are authoring schedules, you want to get them to have the project desktop client. That's the best place to author those schedules. And so that the Project Online Professional license gets them access to that. But it also gets more. It allows them to do a build team so they can get their enterprise resources from the server, and that's pretty awesome. And then at least one Project Online Premium license has to be in any site collection that gives you access to all of the functionality, including the accepting resource engagements and creating and editing resources, et cetera, et cetera. So just for fun, I've also included some Power BI licensing options. Power BI is becoming increasingly important as the needs for visualizing project management data increase. Microsoft has been rolling out a ton of great functionality every month. And so a lot of times people will need the Power BI Pro license as well to be able to access some of the project management concept, which is content, which is rendered out through Power BI. So that's a key thing to think about. So let's do a quick tour of the project desktop functionality. And if you've been using Microsoft Project for a while, you'll recognize some of this. This is the Project Professional client. It's got a ribbon up here, tasks, resources, reports. This was added, I think, 2 releases ago and does some really nice dashboards and reporting, project views. This Agile Analyzer, Sensei actually has a plugin there. So let's, Matt, let me just address this one question from Matt. Can we purchase the mix of subscriptions? Absolutely. So end users will only pay $7 per month. Yeah, if they need to access this information, they would pay that $7, and they're primarily will be working in the PWA client. Then the project managers would pay $30 per month, right? And the admin server people. Some executive use cases may happen if you've got people doing portfolio management. They might also need that $55 per month, but that's the basic pricing structure thing. And you can talk with a person at Microsoft and they can develop a quotation for you and get that piece moving. I think you can actually order those licenses on the web. Certainly your Office 365 administrator can purchase those, by going into the licensing piece of Office 365, their portal, their admin portal. But getting back to, so thank you for that question, Matt. Getting back to the Project Professional client. So this is, has the basic views, the Gantt chart views. Now, Sensei has extended these according to our books and our training that we run you through a different set of views, so just starting with task name and duration, and then going into budgeting and cost tracking, and then dependencies. So we lead you through the process of building a high quality schedule. And we've got this nice one called Project Status, which pulls out our KPIs. Now, we've programmed these KPIs into the system to interrogate your baseline and allow you to see if you're slipping in one of three different dimensions, whether it's cost. So if your cost is exceeding your baseline cost, or your work, so whether your effort hours is exceeding your baseline, or your finish date. And each one of them is set to express itself in percentage terms, which is great. So it doesn't really matter what the size of the task is, but if you're below 10% over your variance, this KPI will be green. If you're between 10 and 20%, then it'll go yellow. And then if you're over 20%, you'll go red. And think of it as an early warning system to be able to detect, what's going on in your schedule. But there's some interesting, features here. They've added these task headings. These have been in for a couple of releases, but they're great to be able to sort and filter and group on different fields. You've got the task inspector. This is a nice way of understanding what's going on, what's contributing to a particular problem. Is our resources over allocated? So there's a lot of intelligence here. Most recently, they've added the timeline functionality, and one of the things is being able to have multiple timelines. So this is I'm biased. I love the Gantt chart because you don't get the overlap. The timeline, you have to account for the fact that a lot of these items are compressed. There's a lot going on in analysis. And so it's helpful just to show the phase as opposed to the actual tasks on a timeline, because there's overlap going on there. But there's another piece that's important here. When we talk about big trends that have happened in project management, one of the key things is Agile. And Agile is a different methodology. You have storyboards, you've got epics, you've got story types, you've got story points, and so you need to think about tasks in a different way. And one of the things that Microsoft introduced in this last release for the click to run client only, the Office 365 version, the Project Online version of Project Pro, is this task boards. So now you have the ability to see those tasks in in sprint form, and you can do backlog grooming. You can say, oh, this feature it's not going to happen in this sprint, it's going to go into this sprint, and you can move stuff around very easily. So it's really, really helpful. And at Sensei, we have some Agile experts on staff, and we realized that this implementation was not all that we wanted it to be. So we actually added this installable piece that unlocks some of these views, but also provides some macros to do specific actions of understanding your story priority. Look at the current sprint, look at the story list, understand we've added these story point fields, and we've added them not just to the Project Pro client, but to the Project Online client, so we can report on this globally. So if you're looking to manage projects, Agile projects, the Project Online version of Project Professional now has this new capability to manage these boards more easily and more capably. So That's just a quick overview of the project desktop and some things that have been updated in the past couple of years. What I want to talk about now is just Project Online and give you sort of a quick tour of Project Online. Now, Project Online, this is looking at our beacon configuration here. So the quick launch bar has been changed a little bit. This top link bar has been changed a little bit. And we've configured tons and tons of best practices into here. But some of the key points of this is, being able to put together proposals, enterprise project types, so you can store templates for software development or agile templates or program templates, and be able to provide those to your team members. And, to create a new proposal, you don't need to be in Project Pro. You can be in PWA only if you have the project manager rights to create a project, and you can create a new proposal. One of the things that you get when you create a new proposal through PWA is a set of project detail pages. These can be forms that you can fill out to capture project level information. And so you can actually automate the process of creating a new proposal, and you can start to look at that. Now, if the project is approved, and if the project progresses through a particular workflow, you can take a look at that. So here's the project center, and this we've got a Dice workflow visualization tool that allows you to sort of see the governance workflow for a project, take it through some steps, some phases, and some stages to be able to move that project through to the other side and get it done, and also record those key approvals. One of the things that a lot of PMOs struggle with is are people working on approved work, or are they working on random projects that came up? And every organization has this balance between project work and operational work. And so being able to understand which projects are approved, and which projects go into a particular portfolio, those are all things that you can do in Project Web App Project Online. This strategy group down here, this portfolio analysis, so being able to manage drivers and prioritizations. This is a feature that Microsoft incorporated in a 2007 timeframe and 2010, allows you to build different portfolios and evaluate whether those portfolios are affordable, whether they're valuable, and whether you need to hire resources for those. So you can analyze the cost of a particular portfolio and say, okay, if I had $3.3 million, I could do 100% of these projects. But if my CFO tells me that I've only got 2.5 million, $2,500,000 dollars, then I can have a fact-based conversation with my stakeholders and say, well, if you're only giving me $2.5 million, I'm not going to do the corporate firewall development R100 project, and I'm not going to do the WorldMart network integration because those fall below the line. I can't afford to do those. I can still achieve 84% of our priorities, but I'm not in a position to be able to deliver more projects than this. So you have this really nice capability of having that conversation. That's an important conversation to have with your stakeholders. You want to be able to set expectations appropriately and be able to provide, real-time analysis. Most people that adopt this tool are able to shift from annual planning to quarterly or on-demand planning. You can actually put together portfolios here and um, and have immediate feedback. Oh, you want us to do these three more projects? Let's add them to this portfolio, and then let's look at our budget and let's make sure that we can afford it. Because there's nothing worse than starting off projects and having to kill them because you ran out of money or because you didn't think that you had the resources to work on them. And that's another key part of this is, understanding whether you need to hire resources or not. These are all features that you can do in the Project Online PWA client, which allows you to engage with your stakeholders in a more interesting way. Now, getting back to the team member participation in this. So if I'm publishing tasks out to people, I can show them their task list. That's very helpful. I don't have to rekey anything and send it out in an Excel spreadsheet because they can come here for $7 a month. They can see all of their tasks and they can update them. So they can also, update their actual work, their planned work through a timesheet configuration. And in our Beacon solution, we actually configure all of this for you. We can work with you to load the resource pool and get your projects in so that, you can be very productive very quickly. This platform is also really great for housing dashboards and reports. In our Beacon solution, we ship with I think it's over 30 Excel-based reports, which have a live link into our reporting hub. So we're pulling the data out of project, sticking it into an Azure Data Mart, and then we're pulling data from there on resource availability, budgeting, cost tracking, planning, portfolio status reporting, project status reporting. This is a very popular one because, a lot of organizations spend a lot of time putting together their status. And it would be really, really helpful to just be able to click a button and regenerate a status report. Be able to click a button and say, okay, this is what's going on with the Cactus Drone Package Delivery Software Release 2 project. So being able to pull together this data extends to, your KPIs, your, project level fields, your project description, your status, also the current milestones and any variances and the risks and issues, because these are all coming from that project collaboration site, which is associated with each project. And that's really one of the key things is that you can provide for any particular project. You can provide a collaboration site so that the team can focus in on managing all of their artifacts in one place. So they can see a project summary, they can record their action items, they can record the latest status, and then they can put in active issues, risks, documents. And we've even extended this to include change requests, action items, announcements, a decision log. One of the things a lot of PMOs have problems with is to actually record their decisions and stay focused on a direction without having to remake decisions all the time. Well, if you have a decision log and you're writing down your decisions, then you can revisit that with your team and say, no, 2 months ago we already made that decision. Let's move on and keep working. It's a great way to keep people focused. The other thing, so this is a really nice site, and by the virtue of our reporting hub, we can pull all of this data in and render it into reports. So whether it's a status report or we also have a Power BI content pack, which allows you to role-based look at the data in a very interactive manner across projects and programs and proposals and things like that. This, Power BI is just an amazing platform that Microsoft has been, doing monthly releases on. They've been investing a ton of money. What we've done is we've pulled all of this data together in a handy format so that we can represent, a dashboard, an overview page, a timeline page, which looks like, a Gantt chart, but on a project basis, and then drill down into costs, and even down to cost types. So we summarize the data up into the cost types, and you can look at hardware, labor, software, and understand where your variances are coming from. Very similar to work, being able to look at your work variances, but then we start pulling out issues, risks. This is a risk matrix, probability versus impact. We've got a link here to be able to go down into the project site. And we've also got some drill through here. So if you're interested in knowing what's going on with this project, why is it red? You can drill through to the project details page and see similar to a project status report, but a little bit more interactive. What's the work over time, the costs over time, the status, what milestones are completed, what milestones are coming up. This can get you to the concept of milestone velocity, which is, if you want to accelerate the pace, understanding what your milestone velocity is critical. So the Project Online PWA client is just a rich platform from which you can hang your reports, your timesheets, your portfolio management, your resource management. There are all sorts of functions that you can come up with and integrate and host in Project Online. So it's just a really rich environment to pull all of that data together. So how do you get there? So I want to talk a little bit about transition considerations, because it's not a trivial undertaking to say, I'm going to take 3 project managers that work standalone by themselves with their teams. They're doing all of these processes manually now, and I want to put them onto a system that makes their life better. It, automates some of the status reporting. It, gives them access to quantitative feedback from their team members. How do we get there? It's not just saying, okay, here it is. You want to think through what it's going to take to change your organization to be able to be ready to move from just a project desktop installation into a project online, mode of operation. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the things you should think about as you contemplate this transition. Don't want to scare you away, but I want to prepare you for this transition. So the first thing you want to think about is executive support. You want to make sure that your stakeholders are on board, that they value the transition, that they see how important it is, and that they're going to support you in moving forward to this. So, it's critical for a project management project, for a project PMO, to be able to have the support of management. And this is Kenneth Steinis, our CEO, and he gets it. And so if your management doesn't, or if they don't see the support, let us know. We'd like to work with you to make sure that your management understands the value of this platform, and that they see the vision, that they have the persistence and the patience and the fortitude to move this thing forward, and the budget. Got to have a budget to move projects forward. So, we want to help you with moving this. And one of the key things is that you're creating really a data-driven enterprise. you're taking these project teams and you're giving them these tools like timesheets, like project sites, like new access to the schedules. You're empowering your project managers to automate the status reporting, and you're providing. Um, sorry, I skipped ahead. You are providing to the executives a set of reports and dashboards that are built on this infrastructure. And so you need to educate each one of these stakeholders. Thank heavens we've got some training to get each one of these people on board with this. We really feel like when you make this commitment that your data quality is going to improve because you've got all of these people collaborating on it. It can't help but get better. So you can sort of get out of the excuse of saying, oh, well, my project schedule's all messed up and, I can't get it to work, to, hey, let's help each other to get this fixed because it's driving, these reports and dashboards, and we want them to be as up to date as possible. You do need a business case to be able to move an initiative like this forward. And so some of the questions you want to talk about with people is how much time are we spending today to email team members, rekeying data, migrating the data from project to Excel, to PDF, to wherever, updating status meetings. Are we doing the most of our updates in a status meeting and boring, 5, 10, 15 people with somebody else's project status rather than quantitatively grabbing that status from a timesheet and automatically integrating that into our project schedule? How much time are we spending gathering data? I worked in an organization for several years where it took probably a week to 2 weeks to understand the status of any given project because the data sources were so disparate that it was very hard to gather that data. So most of the time you spent as a project manager was figuring out what rocks to turn over to try to, unearth the status that was coming from the various teams. So when you're stuck behind the minutia of that manual approach, you don't really have time to think about improving performance. And really one of the goals of this is to make it easier for your project managers to optimize their process and get better at it. And so, find some hard savings, some soft savings. Maybe you've got a burning platform. Maybe, some high level projects, expensive projects have failed. Take advantage of that and say, hey, there is a better way to manage projects, and let's go down this journey of, doing this faster, cheaper, and better. Another thing you want to do is to start thinking about how you would implement this. Okay, so starting to do some planning. Hey, we're project managers. We do plans. We know how to do that. Well, transition planning for a project management organization is slightly different. One recommendation in the Microsoft community is engage with a partner. Sensei Project Solutions, we've rolled this out 500 times. We can help you to get from point A to point B in your journey of becoming a better PMO. Evaluate where you are today. Know where you are. Accept the fact that some of your processes are broken and that you need to fix them. Plan for the future state. Understand what that vision is. Hold on to that vision. Deploy thoughtfully in increments. Don't boil the ocean. Don't do it all at once. Do step by step by step. And you want to also make sure that you understand what's in it for me, for every level of person who is touched by this. So for project managers, there's going to be, training and frustration around managing project schedules, perhaps in a new way that they've never done before. For team members, actually focusing in on task-based outcomes, whether you're using Agile or Waterfall, doesn't really matter. Getting them connected to this process is huge. And you do want to hold on to the message, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit because there are a lot of objections that your stakeholders are going to have, and you need to work through that process with them. So we'll talk about some objection handling here in a minute. What does a migration scenario look like? Well, this is a template for our deployment of our beacon solution. And really what happens is we deploy a reference configuration of the beacon solution in about 3 weeks. And then we can turn that over to you, and we can work together, or you can do yourself custom configuration, work on the process maturity, work on the procedures and documentation, and the custom reporting. So you want to think about those different items that you're pursuing, and the different constituencies you need to prepare. These green training courses. So we offer application admin courses, project management courses, resource management courses. So these report author training is helpful if you're going to have an in-house capability for deploying reports on top of the system. So the idea is that you address all of the change factors that are coming, and that you have a plan for addressing those. Now, speaking about organizational change management, I'm a firm believer that training pays for itself. That one of your best investments in this type of project is the actual training, that your project managers are becoming more capable, that the decisions that they're making are happening faster, they're happening better, they're happening based upon data and not on emotion. And you have to take into account that your team has emotions around all of this. I don't want to do it. It's not the same. Why can't we do it on an abacus and with my stone knives and bear skins? I've been successfully delivering projects using smoke signals for the past 400 years. Why would we want to change? Well, change can be hard, but planning on it, providing the marketing and the communication support to be able to do that change is really an important factor in making sure that this type of initiative, this growth or this rebirth of a PMO using metrics, that's a big deal. Being able to say, you know what, we're going to improve our finish variance of our projects, and we're going to track it, we're going to know it, we're going to master it, and we're going to improve it. That's empowering. That's going to give your project managers a reason to stick around. It's going to give your project managers a reason to work a little bit harder on making sure that they achieve these great quantitative goals that they can go after. Now, it's these projects I think of as a river going downstream. That river meanders to the left and to the right, and over the generations, you have different directions that you're going in. And a lot of that is due to the noise that's generated around people's concerns for moving in a new direction. And so I just want you to think about, if you're going to undertake a rebirth of your project management organization, keep hold of the message. Understand if someone is is talking about their own biases, if a person is talking about their own limitations, and help keep them focused by redirecting and moving them forward. So you'll have people that are trying to boil the ocean, and there's a tendency to say, we have to roll it all out, otherwise none of it's going to work. And that's not true. You can roll out pieces of this application one piece at a time so that you are successful in that piece, and then you do the next piece. So you want to make sure that you're not trying to boil the ocean. Some people are happy working by themselves. They don't want to have to involve other people. And really, the science and the art and science of project management is all around building a community and getting that community focused in a particular direction. So sometimes you have to get your project managers out of their shell and increase their comfort level with communicating on specific metrics. Communicating about what is the hours that you spent, what are the actual hours that you spent on a project. That's something that you want your project managers to feel comfortable doing. And I think that there are some organizations that believe that a somewhat chaotic environment is actually creative. And over the years, I've heard many inventive arguments about why, trying to order a process is detrimental to the health of an organization. And so you have to sort of take that with a grain of salt and focus people on those common metrics that they can have in this new world that you're building for them, and allow them to focus on the opportunity for improvement. Some people get single focus, single tracked. You want to help them to build their relationships to improve the group's performance. You've got people that are going to focus in on 3 and 4, 5 digits of precision in the to the detriment of the accuracy of the numbers. So you have to remember that when you're dealing with these numbers, they are changing all the time. And, we're providing a set of dashboards so that people can look at this information, and they shouldn't get bogged down in the 0.0002s. They should look at the larger numbers and understand the count of projects, the count of resources, the count of hours per month that people are allocated to projects. People get all frustrated about dates. We're a big advocate for the concept of proactive scheduling. So schedules are constantly moving around. Just like that GPS, that dot is moving around, and the direction may change based upon whether you took a left turn or a right turn. So too, a project schedule is going to change during its life cycle. You may get a quarter of the way into a project, realize that you've missed some requirements. You're going to have to rescope some items, and that's going to affect the schedule, the budget, and you're going to have to react to that. You may need to, look at additional budget. You may need to look at additional time, and so don't get focused on, how did that date change? Why did it change? It can't change. It must not change. Well, of course, dates change all the time. One of the beauties and strengths of Microsoft Project is that scheduling engine, so you can understand multiple inputs into a date and have it tell you its best estimate of, in a complex schedule of over 100 lines. It's amazing to me how many people try to do that in their head, and they shouldn't. Let's trust our schedules. Let's build them correctly with predecessors and successors, and then let's understand where those deadlines hit and whether we're going to make them or not. And even, managing your stakeholders at the CEO, CFO level, oftentimes those people, will look at at a potential project and they're like, I didn't use those tools when I was a kid. We used to use stone knives and tablets. So why do you need to have a project management tool? Well, because it's cheaper now, because Microsoft has really pushed the price point of doing these things together, and it liberates the project manager to focus on better performance, better performing teams, and really, understanding how to get these things done. So, anyway, communication is critical as you're expanding the scope of your project management organization. So I do want to talk about, the foundation of this. So Microsoft has built a platform based upon SharePoint project running as a service. And essentially, we've built a set of best practices on top of that. And then we work with you to get a company specific configuration. So the idea is that you get a customized solution for your needs, but it's based upon the hundreds of years of knowledge of our organization to help you get this done efficiently and quickly. A lot of these standards are coming from PMI. Of course, we've got the PMBOK guide, we've got the standard for program management, the standard for portfolio management, the practice standard for work breakdown structures. All of this goodness that the PMI has developed over the years is there embedded in this platform, so that you can get this stuff done and take advantage of that. I mean, you can stand on the shoulders of giants because you don't have to rethink, why are we doing this? How are we doing this? Because you've got some best practices built in. So we think we're providing you with a great foundation on which to base your PMO journey. Journey should incorporate training. As I said before, training is your best investment. It really is a great way of investing in your people, getting a real return back. And we offer a ton of instructor-led classes. So we've got, role-focused curriculums for administrators, project managers, resource managers, portfolio managers. Some of these are offered on-premise. We would come to you and, provide this training with your project managers. That's a really rich and important experience to get your project managers together in a room for 3 days, go through the functions of this. Dale Howard is one of our trainers, internationally recognized as an expert in this field, and he loves this. He really, truly loves sharing this data with your project managers and enabling them, making them more capable at managing projects. Some of our projects some of our classes can be offered virtually, but there's no substitute for that in-person experience. We've also published some books, so sometimes your project managers don't have time to go to a class, but they do want to have a reference guide. Our Proactive PPM with Microsoft Project 2016. We're in the process of coming up with a new version of this for the 2019 release, but it's aligned with the PMI practice standards and the Gartner recommendations. And you can also download it. You could get it in print if that is helpful, but you can also download it to your mobile device and see it all. We've also translated a lot of this e-learning, a lot of this book content into some e-learning classes. So that's very funny, Matt. Thank you. Yes, I do believe that Dale does dream about project management every night. It's been his career. He's been very successful at it, and God bless him. We love him a ton. So, But whether or not you could fit in that classroom training, or whether e-learning is more appropriate. You've got items that you can take advantage of what bandwidth you have with your people. Now, I do want to talk about PMO governance a little bit, because this is really the icing on the cake, with regard to being able to influence how people use the system and actually get better at the practice of project management. So PMO governance, we've actually released a tool called the Portfolio Advisor. And this allows you to set up governance checks, compliance checks, and be able to build a leaderboard where your project managers are competing for that gold cup or that silver cup. And you can drill down to look at the individual projects and understand what's going on, what are the issues. And I actually can show that to you here. This is the front page. It's really just a compendium of, summary data. But in the back, setting up the settings, you can set up your thresholds for what is the stale project status date? What is the cadence with which you publish a project? How many risks is too many risks? How many project issues without due dates can you stand before you want to flag that as a problem, or as a warning, or as just a message? You choose the severity of the indicator, and you can do that with compliance as well. So making sure your work breakdown structure is well formed, your resources are well formed, your schedule is well formed. I love this, task with a duration longer than 10 days or 2 days. Doing task decomposition correctly is critical to be able to do a really nice job, especially when you have these tasks that are going out to timesheets and you want people to give you those actual hours. You want to be able to manage that. But this leaderboard, you can sort of see who's on top. You get a healthy competition between your project managers, but also you can drill down and say, hey, Brett, let's talk about what's going on with AA Tenant Renewal R200. You can open that up and say, I see that we've got 14 tasks with duplicate names. That's going to be very hard if a resource has that on their timesheet. They're not going to be able to distinguish necessarily between those ones with duplicate names. So let's drill down and see which ones those are. So, let's try to make sure that we're, updating these so that they're unique. Schedule items, tasks that aren't added to a baseline. That could be a good thing, or it could be a bad thing, depending upon what your baseline policy is. So it's just a really nice tool to be able to, without having to go open up every schedule, to be able to give your project managers advice on how things are moving forward and what they can do to get better at managing their data in the system. So let's keep moving here, and let's talk a little bit about project futures. So a couple of things. One is, the future is here. Certainly, Agile is a huge trend that's coming along. Microsoft's done some nice work with the task boards to be able to make it easier for your project managers within project to manage Agile features. And, when you're talking about project and project online, integrating with some of the more common Agile tools like Visual Studio Team Services or with Jira, there's a nice synchronization that is capable there. The Jira synchronization, we lean on a third-party add-in called SEPTA Bridge to do that connection. But the goal is that you have the best of all possible worlds. You've got your project, you've got project web app, you've got all of your enterprise reporting, you got your integrated timesheets, your enterprise resource management all together. So being able to manage multiple methodologies in a single tool is huge. It's a great capability. But Microsoft never sleeps. There's a lot going on, and they've made some blockbuster announcements a couple of months ago, or I guess it's about a couple of months ago, at the Ignite conference. And three principal new features that are rolling out. Project Home. This is a screen capture of Project Home. That's available now. It's an early release. It's got some limitations to it, but it's a nice way of understanding what are my favorite projects, what are my recent projects, what have I worked on, especially if I'm working across multiple Project Online instances. This really helps. Next up is coming hopefully this month is the project roadmap. That is a capability to create a timeline like experience. However, you can connect certain parts of projects, whether those projects are happening in Project Online or in Planner or in Jira. Not all of those are connected up yet, but the idea is that there's going to be a flow connector to be able to connect those items on your roadmap to the underlying system. So it's a dynamically updating dashboard or portal to understand the overall status of a program. So the roadmap is a really interesting feature that we're hoping to see the light of day here any moment now. And next up, first half calendar 2019, we've heard April, but it's always hard to tell with these release dates. Is the project management service. This is a re-architecting of the project, a web-based project management tool. And all of these items are going to be built on top of the Common Data Service for Apps, which is a new, robust, new semantic layer that allows not just the common entities like resources, tasks, assignments, but new entities like portfolios or financial entities, the Dynamics database, and concepts like customers and accounts. I'm super excited for the Common Data Service for Apps because I believe in an organization where you've started to integrate all of these data types onto the Common Data Service for Apps, that you will see the day in the not too distant future to be able to say, hey, is that task complete? Great. Shoot off an invoice. When that invoice comes back in, take those dollars received and pull that back into my schedule. That you'll be able to use Flow to build connectors from your financial entities into your project entities, your resource entities, etc. So you'll have an unprecedented integration capability for moving this stuff forward. So very exciting stuff. And all of this is coming with that Project Online subscription. So one of the reasons why to get on board is because this stuff is happening in the subscription product. And so that's why we want to emphasize to make that transition and move forward. So we've got about 6 minutes left. Thank you, Matt, for entering in some questions. But we do have a question window up here. And so if any of you have some thoughts, or if you want to understand more about project, if there's a particular item, please enter in some text into the question window and let me know what you're interested in seeing, because we've got a little bit of time left to think through this. Don't hold back. If you've got questions on licensing, I can kind of help with that, but Microsoft is really the authority on licensing. You want to make sure that you're clear on how your organization is licensed. Any questions on SharePoint? Any questions on the newer platform or some of the older platforms? What does it take to transition from 2010, 2013? Do you want to migrate SharePoint data? Are you interested in any of that? Put something into the question box and let me know. Well, if you can't think of any questions now, here we go. Can you talk about whether an organization can stay with the current project online and only migrate to the new project management service features when we are ready? Yeah, thank you, Walt, for that, because that's an important question. It's not 100% clear what the migration path looks like yet, and we're sort of discussing different scenarios of, do you stay with what you have, and when is the appropriate time to migrate to the new project service? And if history is any guide, you move to a new platform when the feature set compels you to do so, when there's a business case to do so. So that is a great question, and I think the jury's out. I think we're probably going to see that the Project Online platform is the platform to be on for the next 18 to 24 months, and that when the project service, the new re-architected project, becomes feature complete, when it becomes stable and lovely and beautiful as it's supposed to be, then there would be the time to move over. But that's a great question, Walt. Thank you for asking that. Jim had a question, will this recording be available later? That's a very good question. I don't know. We make these recordings, we process them internally. Sometimes we choose to make them available or not. But you could certainly ask that question if you wanted to send a note to info@senseiprojectsolutions.com. If you have any follow-up questions or if you want to inquire as to whether this recording is available. We are working at making these recordings available to our customers, and certainly, if you want to put in a request for one of them, we can process that request. So thank you for that question, Jim. All right. Well, we're here at 11:28. We got 2 more minutes to go. I appreciate your time in going through this. I really thank you for taking an hour and a half out of your day. I hope this was somewhat useful to you, at least challenging to pick your brain around. Maybe excite your brain a little bit about some of the potentials for moving from a project desktop environment into a project online environment and what some of those considerations are. Really appreciate your time. And if you do have any follow-up questions, please send us a note at info@senseiprojectsolutions.com. And with that, I'll let you all go. Appreciate your time. Thanks very much and have a great rest of your day.